Happy Saturday at Texas Pinball Festival. We are getting set up and we'll be ready to rock and roll pretty soon.
Pinball machines, as far as what your flipper rebuilds and all that kind of stuff. How many people in here feel comfortable soldering? Good. How many people work on your own boards? Nice. All right, we're gonna do some more stuff here. How many people have one pinball machine? Everybody, pretty much? How many people have 5 pinball machines? How many have 10? 20? 30? 40? Oh, there we go. That's where we went off, 40. How many people have 35? Anybody got 35? It is a disease. I tell people all the time when they pick up their first pinball machine, and I say, hey, don't turn off the lights. They'll multiply. It's kind of like the gremlins. You don't feed them at night, and So, but yeah, they'll multiply real quick. There's something about it. It's addicting because you get one, and especially. So I'm from Greenville, South Carolina, and me and my dad just wanted something to do together. So we got a pinball machine and started working on it. And it was that fixing and tinkering on things and everything that really is what got us hooked and got the disease. But there's a lot of other things we could be doing, so this isn't a bad thing. But we started off with We started off with a Charlie's Angels System 1, Gottlieb System 1 machine. And we didn't know any better, but everybody in the area had already passed on this machine, and because it was in such rough shape that nobody else wanted it. And so we were like, well, we don't know any better, so we made an offer. The guy said, no, I've got more than that in it. And then about 3 days later, he texts us back and says, my wife wants it out of the living room, so come get it. So we paid $250 for a Gottlieb System 1. And we had to do everything to it. I mean, all the displays and everything were all messed up. They had digits in the one digit was coming up in the middle, coils were burnt, all this kind of stuff. Some of the boards had been worked on before and everything. And so literally we got online and we found pinrepair.com and just started from the beginning of that System 1 guide, printed it all out. It took us about 6 months, went through every single thing on that game, changed out the display chips. All of the displays, the 6118 chips that were on the displays themselves were burnt up because somebody had unplugged them with the game on. And in those, they have those edge connectors. So if you turn them just a little bit, you put voltage somewhere it shouldn't be. And so you always in those games, make sure you have the power off before you unplug anything. It's a good practice anyway, but in those games especially. And so we went all the way through it, and after that it was like, okay, what's next? And so we slowly started building our collection. We'd buy one, we'd play it, we'd sell it, and we would keep going with it. And so we ended up having a big collection, and our friends and everybody in the area was like, hey, will you work on our machines? And we're like, sure. And then they asked us to put it in their locations and stuff, and it grew to where now we have 5 different locations where we have pinballs and arcade machines in people's establishments. We also have a shop where we take in pinball machines and repair them, refurbish them for people. We're not those restore guys. They can put it back to new or better than new. We like to have the patina and stuff. We like to get it working and just live on. And so we do that. We also do arcade repair now with redemption games and all that kind of stuff, but it's been a fun journey. How many people have been doing pinball for like 5 years? How many people have been doing it for 10 years? How many people have been doing it for 20 years? Nice. How many people for 30? Ooh, how many, 40? Probably 40. How about 50? Anybody got 50 years? That's where we hit the line, 50 years, all right. Man, y'all been working on pinballs a long time. How many people in here have games on location somewhere? Anybody got any games on location? Nobody? Well, you down there? All right, sweet. That's awesome. All right, now let's do, how many people have a game from the 90s? Okay, how many have from the 80s? 70s? 60s? 50s? 40s? Yeah. How many people have a working game from the 40s? You got one? Working from the 30s. What game is it? First shooter rod game. Wahoo. Nice. So it's a slot machine and a pinball machine? Flipperless? Yeah. That's cool. That's rad right there. It has a what? A mint dispenser. Have you ever had a game with a mint dispenser on it?
No.
You got pictures? Awesome. I gotta see that. That's cool. Like, I remember working on a 1955 Slugfest, and the customer was asking me, like, what is this metal thing on the side? I was like, that's for the cigarettes. Like, lay your cigarettes on the side of the machine. They didn't know. And he was a collector. He liked all the pitch and bat games. And so he would get a lot of pitch and bat games. I think he ended up with like 10 of them. So he'd have the Williams 57 with the windows on the side. He had Shortstop. He had Slugfest. He had Pennant Fever. And goes. And so he had that Slugfest, which was actually a pinball machine with flippers, but it was a baseball theme, and so that's why he got it. But he collected all those, so I had to get real familiar with those real quick. And those are a little different, but they're a little bit simpler at times too. Thank y'all for being here.
Check. No? Damn. Not that key. All right. Okay. Cool. Yeah.
I've already kind of introduced myself.
Oh, all right, nice.
While you're doing it.
Oh, nice. I'm going to turn this gain down a little bit. A little loud. Hi, everybody.
Hello. Thank y'all. You guys just met Phil. We have Matthew. Matthew, introduce yourself.
Matthew Talley with Lynn's Arcade and Monterey Flipper Pinball. We run a arcade out in California, free play arcade out in California with 40 games. Nice mix of old and modern. Been doing tech work for about 8 years or so. And yeah, we're here to show you guys kind of the stuff that we learned and pass on the knowledge to y'all.
How to troubleshoot your pinball machine, starting with how to get into your pinball machine.
Yeah.
So that'll be a fun, organic tutorial that we all might come across one of these days, so that's fun. I'm Imoto with Marco Specialties, Marco Pinball. Please come visit us at our booth. We're so happy to be here at Texas Pinball Festival. We have a small team here championing Mark Mandeltort's legacy. If y'all are familiar with him, he was our fearless leader with his mission of keeping pinball out of the landfills. So that's really all what our company is about. From sourcing parts that are hard to find to recreating them so we can keep these pinball machines running for years and years. And this is something he started in 1985. It's our 40th year in pinball, and we're happy to continue that legacy and keep all these classic games alive. So through that, we've been doing seminars and stuff all across the country, including at TPF, with awesome techs like these guys to help teach us how to keep these games running. So without further ado.
Very cool. So, this me and Matthew were talking about this game, and he literally kind of just picked it up and hasn't done anything really to it. And so I think one time it booted up, but now it's not booting up. It's not, so we'll go through it. But he was just showing me, I didn't see it before. There's cobwebs actually in the shooter lane.
Yeah.
So this is like fresh barn find. This is one of those that like, hey, you just got a deal off of Facebook Marketplace or whatever, and here you are, and you're starting fresh.
That's right. It's a league member bought it, said if we can get it working, we can have it at the arcade for a year. And I was like, great. I was like, I'll see what I can do, get it working. And then turns out we needed one for this seminar anyway, so it worked out pretty good.
Let's do it.
It didn't have a lock on it when I got it, and now all of a sudden it's locked. So we're going to have to drill that lock because I don't have keys for that. So we're going to start by getting into this game. When drilling a lock, get a nice new sharp bit, kind of center right in the middle of it, and just kind of start going. It'll just kind of chew in there. I don't just hold it and like blast through because it'll heat up the bit and end up dulling the bit. So you kind of just pulse it. And eventually, it should punch through.
And sometimes they take a little bit of caressing and stuff, but basically what you're trying to do is drill out the screw that's on the other side there, and it'll actually let that cam fall down and get out of the way. And so there it goes. He punches it, shakes it, tries to get it out of the way, but it should.
Really? Of course not.
Stuck in there.
Why?
How many people in here have had to drill a lock before? Yeah, we're in good company.
Normally it just goes.
We're in good company.
Interesting.
The worst is, I'll tell y'all, if you ever have these locks up here that you feel like you have to drill, be careful, because it's got this whole bar inside here that holds this in place, and it will get caught sometimes and stuff and everything as well. And so if you ever have to drill one of these, it's gnarly.
I don't know what I'm missing, man.
You're all the way through, but
Not gonna do it.
it's not moving. May have to pry the door.
Have to what?
Pry the door.
I've never pried the door. You want to pry the door?
Sure.
Normally when you get in here, it just pops this guy right off, and now
Yeah.
I just don't want to do it. Kind of messing up my coin door a little bit.
While they're doing that, I'm going to go through some of the tools and stuff that we have. I have the handy dandy sidekick here, your basic stuff. You got your screwdrivers that you would do, but there's some other tools. I call this a switcheroo. That's just what I've nicknamed it, and that's not its real name, but these are the Klein ones, and they have a 5/16 on one side, and then they have, whoops, handle came off. Then they have a 1/4-inch bit driver on the other side, and those are the two that we use the most in everything. Now, if you're working on the playfield, you're going to need a deeper socket, but underneath the playfield, your stern screws are this 5/16. They're actually like a 10 millimeter kind of deal, but it's a 5/16 works on it, and then you have the 1/4-inch that's on everything. So all your light sockets that go in your game, all those are going to have a 1/4-inch hex on them. And so this tool, like for our shop, we buy like 5 of them. So if we leave one in the game, we still have it and stuff. And so we'll always carry one of these with us. Matthew's got a great set here of all the different ones in their bit drivers and the different ones. A little bit longer. There's some situations where you need this length on here to get into games. I've just been introduced to these and bought these on Amazon right before I came. These are snips, and they're flush mount snips so that you can get right up on boards and do stuff. But then they also have an auto stripper on this side where you can strip the wire. And all you got to do is put the wire in there and do that, and it pulls the shield and everything away. And these are really, really handy. Something like this, especially when you're repinning a game, when you're having to redo connectors and everything, these guys come in super handy. You always want to have yourself a magnet that you can do. Oh, he got it open. Nice.
Thank you.
Nice. Matthew has also introduced me to these little guys. These are so cool. These are like mini pliers, and they get in places, they have this really nice tip on them, and they get in places that others don't. Now, they have them at like Home Depot, but I actually bought myself ones from Amazon. The brand on it is Crescent, and they usually come with this, and yeah.
Did you like them? Yeah.
Yeah. And then these snips come with it. Usually comes in a pack together. Some of the other things is ratcheting crimpers. When you get into Molex connectors and having to repin a lot of connectors, or you have IDC connectors, everybody, how many people know what IDC means? How many people don't know what IDC means? IDC means it's a displacement connector. So it basically displaces the shielding around it. And so when it does that, it has a little pin in there that it slides the wiring and the actual threads of that wire through it, and makes contact. Where a crimp-on actually has a piece that crimps around the actual wire pieces and threads on those and comes around it. And so it makes a better connection. In the IDC connectors, it can come loose, it can do some different things. And so we run into some issues sometimes where we're having issues with a switch matrix or whatever, and really it's just that IDC connector has failed. Yep. And we need to replace it. And so these ratcheting crimpers will save your hands from the just manual ones.
Yeah,
having
absolutely.
to do it, especially when you're in a game and you're having to do like 100 pins, you know, because on some of these Bally games, what I do love about these games is it is very easy to teach on these games and teach people to follow voltage and do some different things, but it's also easier to crimp. If you got one of those Gottlieb System 1s like I did, your hands are gonna really hurt, because getting those back out of those connectors or anything is really, really difficult, and so you end up hurting your hands. But these are what I call hand savers. So those are some tools, but we'll get back into it. I just wanted to touch base on some of this while we're working.
Yeah. So we got it open.
Yep.
So that's good. We keep cruising through the tools.
Yeah, you show us some.
So the different nut drivers, you have a magnetic tip set. So like these are the magnetics that set right inside there. They got magnets, so when you're unscrewing stuff, it's less likely you're going to drop a screw into your game. But sometimes the nut will be down and the bolt will be sticking out the top, so you're going to need a hollow point set, and that's what these are. So no magnets in here, so you got to be careful when you're unscrewing stuff so you don't drop the screw into the bottom of the game. Allen keys, definitely need hex keys or Allen key sets. These are good for like flipper rebuilds and mostly just flipper rebuilds.
Yeah, I mean,
Every now and again.
you run into them here and there and stuff, but and they're usually an 1/8 inch, and then I forget the stern size, whatever the stern side is. Mine's marked yellow.
5/32.
Yeah, 5/32 and the 1/8 are what you use the most. The old Bally games and stuff on their set screws and stuff usually use the 1/8. There is a little bit difference sometimes when you run into new flipper rebuild kits and the manufacturers and stuff, whether they're using metric or they're using SEA or SAE, excuse me. So there is some little bit of variance there, but having a set of those, and I do recommend sometimes maybe even getting ones with the T-grips on them.
Yeah.
Because those come in handy and stuff as well. Show us these meters here.
So the multimeters, you got two different kinds here. You got, is yours auto? No, you have to set yours, right?
Yeah, I have to set mine, yeah.
Yeah, so you got two different kinds of multimeters. You got auto, which on this guy, if you set to AC or DC, it auto ranges, so you don't have to worry about setting specific ranges for voltages. It'll just read from 0 all the way up. And then you got your ohm setting, and then your continuity setting and diode testing. And then Phil's got, this is like the higher end Fluke version.
Yeah.
And then Phil brought his like cheaper version, which is also really cool to show off because it is a manual.
Yeah, this one you actually have to select. So it's got your AC voltage, it's got your DC voltage, it's got your ohms down here, but you actually have to select it and put it into the right range and stuff on it. But I showed this because I can take this on the road and do the exact same thing I need to do with that really expensive one. So you don't have to go out and buy $100 meters. You don't have to go and spend all the money on it. You can use, for most everything you're gonna do in pinball, you can use this too. Now, is it a little bit more cumbersome at times, or it doesn't have a tone, or doesn't have, yeah. But if you are getting started out and you're like, hey, I don't want to go spend all the money yet. I don't know how I'm feeling on it. You can go get just a cheap one off of Amazon. I think I paid $10 for this one on Amazon, and it works just the same. And I take these on the road with me because if I beat them up or leave them in a game or do something like that, then I don't have to worry. It's like, oh, that was $10, you know? And this, again, is something like I kind of keep 2 or 3 of these on the shelf, and if I've got somebody new that's hanging out with us, I'll say, hey, just take this and start learning.
Yeah.
Because it kind of makes you learn a little bit more of like, hey, what do I need to be on? And so it kind of gets your brain in that mentality of, oh, this is a DC section, this is an AC section, and we'll get more into that in just a little bit.
Yeah, I had another cool little one that was actually gifted to me. It's this teeny tiny little meter that is just like a nice pocket one. So it's the same idea. You have to select what voltages you're looking at, AC or DC. It's got tiny little connectors over here, or readers over here, and pretty cool little tool. Folds up.
Then these always come in handy. These are the switch adjusters. So any of your leaf switches that you have, Marco sells a 3-pack of these where it's a little bit different angles on it and a little bit different gappings for you to get into different spots. So this one's kind of from the side, this one's coming in this way. And so it is when you're working on EM games or you're working on early solid state games where the switches are in a tough spot, it's nice to get this in here, get it right at the base of the switch and be able to turn it and get your adjustments. Most all switches need 1/8 of an inch gap on them. That's kind of what they designed them to do. It means more in EM games because that also deals with the timing of things. And so getting your switches gapped right, this is a great tool to do it with.
Never forget your magnet tool as well.
Yep.
For when you do drop things, you definitely want a telescoping magnet tool. Pull all the bits and pieces that fall into the bottom of the game out.
Yep.
I have 2 different soldering irons here, so this is kind of my portable one. It's really handy, nice and small, compact. It can fit into your bag. Top comes off, and you got your tip on it. And then I got the one that I usually have at the shop, stable, stationary, and that's like kind of more my tabletop version. This is my more portable version.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got your portable solder.
Yeah.
That you can take with you in your bag, and then they have the big spool that usually lives with at home.
Yeah, Marco Specialties sells a 60/40 solder. A lot of the things that come with the cheap kits, and again, it just depends on what you want to do, but the cheap kits ones come with a really poor solder on there. And if you use it on your games, there's a good chance that you'll come into cold solders later because the mixture and the compounds that they use in that just aren't up to the 60/40 mix like this. So they have 60/40 mixes on Marco's website. They come in these kind of containers. You can also buy the Kester stuff on Amazon in the big spools that'll last you a lifetime. I think I still have one from like 5 years ago that I'm still working on. But you do want to care about what solder you're putting back into these games because you'll run into issues down the road. You may have done all this solder work and stuff, and now you're getting issues again because you put poor solder in your game. So make sure you do get some good solder.
Cool.
Yeah, and then this is the cool.
Oh yeah,
the Hacko desoldering gun. This is for more like board work when you're taking out chips or you're taking out header pins, male header pins, and you want to do. This has got a suction on it. And we'll show a little bit of that hopefully at some point, either here or at the booth.
We'll definitely be doing a lot of that at the booth later.
Yeah. But this is a great tool. It is an investment, but I will tell you, if you get into board work and you're doing it, this is going to save you money and save you time.
Yeah, straight up.
So learning how to use one of these is a great tool.
This is the other version of a solder sucker that's just like a manual version, which is a little bit more difficult to use when you're trying to, heat up that solder on the board. Then you got to sneak this guy in there to try to suck it out, where this guy's got just a trigger on it to hit the vacuum. So you can you heat up the board and then just pull the trigger and it just sucks it right into the chamber. This is more of a two-handed version.
Yep.
But also super helpful on if you're desoldering or trying to clean up coils and stuff like that. If you have big globs of solder on the coil, you use this guy to heat it up, suck that off, and then it cleans it out real good. And then when you get fresh wire stripped and you can tin that up, get that back onto that coil without this giant glob of solder. Easier to work with.
Yeah. So this was what we were just talking about. Sorry, I'm behind on the slides here, doing double duty. But yeah, the solder suckers and the proper temperature is important on these. They're not just overdo. I mean, a lot of people turn it way up. It depends on what you're working on. If you're working on an old EM and you're trying to get old solder off of coils, then crank it up. Fine.
Yeah, it's got to be hot.
But if you're working on a board, the board you got to find that balance, and it's a little bit different for each boards and which ones are more sensitive, especially WPC games with the smaller traces and the smaller throughputs. You want to be more careful, and so you kind of inch up that heat to where you find that happy medium.
What's your kind of
starting point usually for me is right around 300 Celsius, and then I go from there. Hey, do I need to adjust it up or down from there? But that's usually where I'll start and stuff. All right, let's keep moving.
Cool. Yeah, we can get into actually showing some stuff.
Yeah. So I'll just go through some of these tips while he's getting set up and everything. When you're dealing with solder and you're dealing with any of that stuff, you really want to get the old solder out of there. Again, we talk about it, but it is the compounds and the mixtures that are in that old stuff. It doesn't mix well with the new stuff, and so you run into this where you get cold solders, where those solders will actually break away because it didn't form correctly. And so you'll see it too sometimes. If you've got a cheaper solder and stuff on there, when you pull away and it cools off, it'll be cloudy. It'll have this cloudy color to it, and that's a poor connection. You kind of want it to be shiny, and it's a lot easier to get those shines and a lot easier to do it with that 60-40 mix that we use on things. And so you want to clean off all the old solder, and strip and prepare any wires. One of the biggest
coil.
It's a mistake, but it's not on purpose. It's just people don't know. But one of the biggest things that we see with new people is when they go to put a new wire onto a coil, a new wire anywhere, is they don't pre-tin the wire. And what we mean by that is you actually take the wire, strip it back, and then you actually add solder so you have a pre-tinned part of that wire that you're about to connect back onto that coil lug and make sure that you got it. And even sometimes, after you've stripped off all that old solder off the lug, putting a little bit of new solder onto the lug too. Right. Like I always tell people when you're soldering, how quickly can I solder this and it be a good thing? The longer you apply heat onto it, the longer it ends up burning things and everything else. Yes? Yeah. So yes, he's asking if there's a lot of situations where you see the old timers and everything else where they will actually take that, twist it up, and put it through the hole on the lug, and then it'll hold that way too. It's not a bad thing, but what I end up doing in those scenarios, if I'm going to do it, I'll put it through, and I will only touch the wire and kind of pre-tin it while it's in there and then add it on top. If you're going to do it that way, that's the way I would do it, is twist it, pull it through that hole, wrap it around like you normally would, but don't touch the lug and the wire at the same time.
Right. So we're going to try to show that if we can here. So just to show and tell, like I snipped this off just so I can show stripping it. And with these nice little snip and strip combos, kind of grab that, get a nice little bit of raw wire. I like to twist them around like that. And then I'm going to tin them. So getting my soldering iron up here. Oh yeah, thank you, Phil.
Another pro tip is if you are soldering and there's things underneath you, is to go ahead and get a rag, a towel, anything, put it down over the stuff that any potential solder could fall onto. Yes, there are situations for flux. Most of the new solders that we have a flux in them already. Yeah, rosin core and everything, and so they have that kind of built into them. But there are situations where if you're struggling to get off old solder, you want to pull in a flux of some sort. And basically it's just this paste. If you look at it, you put it over the top, and it actually helps with the oxidation that is on those. It kind of heats it up, gets rid of it, and makes that solder easier to work with and get off of those lugs, and also for when you're reapplying. And you will use it sometimes in board work if you're having a hard time getting it to clean out of the through holes on those boards. Then we'll put some extra solder, extra flux down, and just get it where that solder, the flux really makes the solder, to me, I say it in layman terms, feel more liquidy. And it makes it feel like it's just oozing off instead of where it's kind of just trickling off. And so it kind of makes it more liquidy, and that's my layman's terms on it.
So I've cleaned out the lug, and I have a nice little hole. I still have some leftover solder around it, and then I've already tinned this wire. So now I can get that guy through, and I just try to hold him in place, like giving pressure, just to kind of make it want to bend towards, bend down when I heat it up. So now I just kind of go back to this, tap it, get it, that tinned solder on that wire warmed up, and you'll see it get liquidy.
While you're doing that, Matthew, tell us your breathing technique.
My breathing technique is you definitely don't want to breathe in while you're soldering. This stuff is poison, basically. So you want to make sure I kind of like take a deep breath in, hold my breath a little bit, and then once I get solder flowing, I kind of blow out to get that solder away from my face. It always ends up coming back at your face.
Yeah, it seems to always find your face. I don't care if you're here, that solder will come right up in your face. There are people, I've seen them do where they set up a little fan and kind of blow it away from them. But the breathing technique, like he said, is we will take a deep breath, and then as we're doing it, we'll kind of and blow it out.
Get that smoke away from your face.
Get that smoke away from you. And then if you have to do some more, you kind of step away, take another breath, and do it some more.
So once you're done soldering your wire onto your coils or switches or anything, you definitely want to grab it and give it a good tug. It's like you want to make sure that sucker is on there.
Don't be timid with it either. You want to know that it's really on there. I mean, I'm not saying just like yank it out of your game, but like give it a good pull. I know when I first started working, the guys that were showing me, they were yanking on everything. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know? And then it made sense.
So now we can kind of get into metering out. So what we'll do is turn the game on, see the state that it is in, and then we can start kind of troubleshooting how to get it working.
Yeah. On the meter again, as he's getting set up there to do this, the four things that we see all the time in pinball with the meter is you got AC voltage, you got DC voltage, you have your ohms readings, which is your resistance, and then you have your diode test. And those are the four things that all the time we're using with these meters. And so your inputs into the game are usually AC voltage, then you have bridge rectifiers or some sort of diodes that will then polarize that and put it into DC voltage so that you can have 5 volts DC for your logic, 12 volts DC for your logic and your sound usually, and then you have some sort of, whether it's 24 volts or 20 volts or 50 volts or whatever it may be for your solenoids, all the coils that are in the games that you'll have, and those are usually DC. Now, in EM games, there's a lot of AC still going on with those and with those coils, but in the solid state games, DC is where we spend the most of our time.
Right. So we flipped it on, and looks like we got GI, no feature lights. Displays have glow. You can kind of see that it's got some glow in there, so that at least they have power to them, but we have no booting. So now we got to get into why it won't boot.
But it works, right? Isn't that what they always say?
But it works, yeah.
But it works.
It turns on. Yeah. It works, but it not.
It turns on.
Play. Yeah.
It works. Are you sure it works? Does the ball pick up?
The things that, first things first, like when I kind of start looking at stuff, we want to start with basic stuff first. So you want to check fuses, make sure you got fuses there. Where else would you go, like, straight after that? It's like you're looking at...
Yeah, so we can tell a lot, if the game has diagnostics in any way, shape, or form like this one does, we can already see a green light on. You've already said, hey, we see the voltage is already at the displays and stuff, so we know some of the voltage is working. But we obviously know that there's an issue somewhere, and so we got to dig a little bit further and see where that issue is. Do we have a 5-volt issue? Do we have that? And so in these games, the power station is underneath the playfield, right?
Yep.
And so that's usually where we would always start on these games is, hey, let's see what power's there. It didn't turn on for us. Let's see what power is available to us, what it's reading, and we kind of go from there. So you get out your schematic or get out your manual, and you start looking at test points on these boards. This has like a power rectifier kind of board underneath here that sends up some voltage up to the solenoid driver board, and the solenoid driver board is what we call the regulator really on it, where it actually makes sure that the voltages are in the range that they need to be, but at the same time that they stay at that voltage. You have what's called unregulated voltage and regulated voltage, and this is a little bit deeper than a beginning thing, but at the same time, you may have 6 volts in the bottom, but by the time it gets to the solenoid driver board up there and passes through it, you're going to have that clean 5 volts that you're needing for your logic.
Yep. So kind of first things that I'd get down into the bottom down here and start popping fuses out.
Yep.
So I like to just kind of get a screwdriver in there and gently pry, get that fuse out of there. Says 4 amp on this board, so it's kind of nice to see it labeled. A lot of times you have to look at the manual. And then I actually check the fuse, try to read if it is a 4 volt or if someone put in something wrong. Which it does have a 4 on there, so I see the 4 amp.
Yeah, you definitely want to see that your fuses are not they're not over amped. And so if you have a 5 amp circuit, you don't want to put anything above 5 amps in there. You don't want to put a 6. You don't want to put a 10.
Yeah,
a lot of people will go to a hardware store and they just say, oh, they had 10s. It's a fuse. A fuse is a fuse, and they'll throw it in there, and that is not the case. You can always go under, but you can never go over when it comes to fuses. So if that's a 4 amp and you say, hey, all I have is a 3, sometimes you can get away with that. But if it needs a 4 amp and all you have is a 5, don't do that, because the tolerances that are on those pieces of components that are in the game are set for a certain thing, and you're going to burn them up if something goes wrong, and now you got more problems. You got a hole in the board. You got something else that you got to fix.
Right. So testing fuses, once you get the fuse out, I set my meter to continuity and just tap on or hold the readers on both sides, and you get a tone telling me that fuse is good. So then I'll put that one back in and just keep on going down the line.
Most meters will have a tone feature on it, and you'll see a little like speaker looking kind of symbol. That's what he's talking about, continuity test. And when you have any continuity, it will actually give you a tone. My little one here doesn't. And so if I'm in this situation, I turn it to an ohms test, and I'm just looking for a pretty good low resistance. So they fluctuate on fuses of what the resistance is, but as long as I'm not getting like 13, 14 ohms on the resistance, then I'm okay with that fuse. But one with a tone on it saves you a little bit of time, and you can hear it, and you don't have to look at it quite as hard. But if you don't have one with a tone, or you don't know where it's at, you can use the ohms reading and just look for continuity. Look for it to say, usually they'll say like 0.2, 0.7, point whatever, and you know that it's got continuity and it's sending a signal that fuse.
So far, so good. All fuses are good.
Yeah.
So now we have to get into testing voltage coming out of the power module down here.
Yep.
Go from there.
So on those boards, there are test points on there, and it shows in the manuals what those voltages should be at those test points. So you'll have test point 1, test point 2, test point 3, test point 4, test point 5, and they all have different ones. In this game, you'll have a 5-volt signal. You'll also have a high voltage signal, which is like 250 volts at that point for the displays. It gets regulated down to like 190 volts later, but it is high voltage there. So if you're messing around and the game's on, be aware, you got 250 volts sitting down there as well. So when you're metering stuff, be careful. Don't be scared, but be careful.
Yeah, these are all DC, correct? Except for one of them, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, the one will be an AC voltage, and that's usually part of the GI circuit. They run a lot of the general illumination circuits in these old games just straight off of the AC. So they'll come out 6 volts. It doesn't need to really be regulated as much with those lights. And so they'll run 6 volts AC for those. That's why people say, oh, it turns on, because it's coming straight from the transformer. It bypasses all the boards, all the connectors really, and everything to an extent. And so those are lighting up because it's getting direct voltage, where all the DC ones have to pass through a board to get changed over to a DC. And so that's where things can go wrong at points.
So do you have those memorized? I can't remember I have to look at a
Show me.
schematic. So
Let's show which ones, and I'll know.
So test point 1
Yep.
on AC, it's 4.2.
Okay, it's a little low. That's okay.
Then we switch to DC, go to test point 2, it's going to be the high.
Should see in the 200s somewhere. Yep.
232.
That's fine.
Test point 3, it's 14 and a half.
It's supposed to be a 14. Sometimes you'll see 16 because it's unregulated and stuff, but yep, keep going.
So test point 4, is that supposed to be AC or DC?
Yeah, that's AC. That's going to be the one for the GIs.
You got
Yep,
6.8.
6.8, so you're good there.
And back to DC for test point 5,
Yep.
43.
Yep. So it looks like the 5-volt circuit may be a little bit low. We saw 4 point something on that. So that may be where some of our issues are and stuff. So
A little low 5, yeah.
yeah, it's a little low, but so now we know we have our high voltage for displays, which we already kind of saw because they were glowing. We have our 43 volts, which actually is the solenoid, so we know that's good. We actually had the 14 volts, which can be up to 16, where they split it down and stuff for other devices like the sound and everything else. And then our 5 volts was a little low. So we want to kind of investigate more on that 5-volt circuit and see, hey, what are we seeing down the line? Because in troubleshooting, the whole entire thing for us is what can we eliminate right away?
Right.
And so the whole point is to eliminate as many components and any variables that we can. Yes? Yes, he is asking about the test points on these boards. Does it actually differentiate between AC and DC? Yes, it should. Most of them do. I'm not saying that back in the day there wasn't one that was misprinted or didn't have that on there.
Yeah, but normally they definitely have, it'll say
Yeah,
DC
it'll
or
tell
AC.
you, hey, you're looking for 5 volts or 6 volts AC, or you're looking for 5 volts DC. And some of them will just say VDC on them and VAC on them. And so when you're looking at it, it may not spell it all the way out, but it'll have an acronym or something there for you. Absolutely.
Something that Imoto just mentioned to me, I wanted to show you guys, is that the black lead is your ground. So you need to find a ground braid or a ground screw on one end, and then you can test with the red. That's your live side. So you want to make sure that you have good ground on the black, otherwise you won't get readings.
Yeah, your DC is always going to be polarized. So you're going to have a positive and a negative or a ground. And so in these games, the way that they do it, they kind of tie everything together, and it's partly to not get shocked. It's one of the things that we do here at TPF when the games come in. If you brought a game, you saw somebody have to come by and verify it. We're actually verifying that the grounds are in the positions that they need to be, so that the person doesn't become part of the ground when they touch a game beside them. You can have like 60 volts between a game beside you because it's not grounded properly. And so when you touch that game and this game, you become part of the ground circuit. So the voltage actually travels through you to the ground. And so that's one of the things that we check here at TPF when every game comes in. And so what Matthew's going to do now is he's actually moving to the next section of where we have test points to actually figure it out. So we have the solenoid driver board up here. That's the next place they go. In your manual, you can kind of follow a flow chart of where things go from. So it says, hey, this voltage comes from this board and then goes to the next board, and it'll tell you which pin, whether that's J1, pin 3, or J2, pin 13, wherever it is. But the test points are where we would really want to focus in on this solenoid driver board to see if we're still seeing the low 5 volts at this point, and we need to shore up the connection between the two, or we need to shore up something on that original board that's down here that's distributing the power out. So
Getting up top, again,
Yep.
black goes on ground, so you got this nice ground braid up here. You can also use like the screws in the back box that are hitting this metal, or a screw on the board. I just like to tuck him underneath, then he's stable.
yeah, tucking it is definitely something. Alligator clip, tucking it, something to get it stable in there. And then he's going to hit some of these test points for the 5 volts and the different voltages on that solenoid driver board. Again, in the manual, it's going to show you on those boards where those test points are and what they should actually be. On that solenoid driver board, you'll actually have 2 of them for the 5 volts. It has 5 volts in 2 different spots there. Then it'll also have the high voltage one. And so all of them come up into that very right upper connector and come into that game, and then they actually filter out of that and go to the different boards as well. So every single board that has logic on it is going to need 5 volts. Every single time you add a board or add a connector, you add resistance to that circuit. And the more resistance that you have, the lower the voltage will drop. So if we have a rusty pin in there or an oxidized pin in there, your voltage is going to drop by just a little bit. But if you do that 5 times, then you may be dropping down a tenth of a volt every single time, and now you're under the usable voltage for your game.
So we're looking like we're getting all our voltage
Okay.
on the test point. So if we go from test point 1, which I just kind of check my meter, we're at
5-1, so that's
5-1.
great.
Test point 2,
5-1, yep.
5-1. Test point 3, 5-1.
Yep.
Test point 4, which is high, I believe. Back behind here very carefully because it's
Yeah.
high voltage. Just go slow.
So that's before it gets regulated. That's the 235. So that's the same 235 that we saw below. And then it has another one that you poke through that'll show you the 190 probably.
So test point 5.
Yep, that's the 14 that we saw underneath.
Test point 6.
Another 5,
Another
yep.
5.
So it should be one more.
7. Test point 7.
Should be one more in this area that gives us a 190, but we know the displays are working, so it's all good.
Yeah, displays are on.
All right, so then now what we've had is say, okay, we verified voltages here, we verified voltages there, and on this system, luckily enough, they did some diagnostics for us. And so they actually have a light system in here. And some of the other games do have that light system as well, where it blinks at you a certain amount of times. It's a lot like a PC computer. It blinks, it does a sound, it does something to tell you, hey, we found an issue. And so in this game, it should have 7 blinks once you turn it on. You turn on it. Right now it's solid, so we know there's an issue somewhere, but we don't know what that issue is yet. And so that light will tell us a little bit. If it comes on solid right away, that means it's never getting into its self-test. And so we may have an issue at some RAM, we may have an issue somewhere else. But let's turn it off and back on, and let's see what kind of flashes we get.
So yeah, we're looking right up here at this little green
LED.
LED, is it LED? Yeah. So we get no flashes whatsoever.
So it locks right away, never gets into its self-test. So on these games, this one actually has the original battery on it. And that's what you see in a lot of these, whether it be a WPC game, which I did bring a board for that.
On the desk.
So, oh yeah, they're up top. So we say acid, but it's not really, it's alkaline and stuff. But you can see on these that this is what you'll see. And it's the same kind of thing that's happening on this board, where all of the battery alkaline leaks out and it starts causing a cancer all over these boards. Bally was very notorious for it because they put a Nikon battery directly soldered onto the board. So the first thing we would do is cut that thing out and get rid of it right away.
Right.
Because it's already eating away at stuff. The good thing about these machines is now it's easier just to replace the board with an All-Tech board. Marco sells them. They sell a kit where you have different boards. But it's become where it's not cost efficient to spend the time sanding these boards down, putting new components on it, and doing that. But in saying that, we have this board that is not working, but we've got all the voltages. So this, in my opinion, would be one of these things where I'm gonna yank that board out.
Yeah.
But let's do a little bit further. Let's see what we can find. Let's start doing some test points on this board and make sure we're seeing some voltages like it should. So in these games, you need 7 flashes. What we see commonly on these games is one of the common issues is that the solenoids and the MPU need a common voltage in this system. And so the 43 volts that it uses for the solenoids, it also uses for the reset section on these boards. And so it actually takes that 43 volts, puts it down to 22, and it distributes it out and uses it for different parts of that board. So what we'll see is somebody's got a locked on pop bumper, it fries the coil, and it hits the board, takes out the fuse, and so now their game's not booting. And they're like, oh man, I've got an MPU issue, it's not booting anymore. And really that's not the issue, it's just that this particular game needs that voltage to boot. That's the 7th flash, is it saying, I found the 43 volts, and it'll find that. With this one, it's not checking the solenoid circuits, it's not checking the lamp circuits, it's not checking any of that because it's locking on right away. And so this is the first thing we want to do, is we've got to get it either with a new board or with this current board to get it to start showing us some flashes, because then we got to know more. So he's looking for voltages on that MPU board and seeing if we see anything there that we can diagnose a little bit further. But if it gets complicated and too complicated, then you get one of these guys. This All-Tech board, they put all of the Bally and Stern games, when I say all of them, it's a lot of them, it's like 95% of them, that they put into these combo ROMs is what we call them, and they have dip switches on them, and you can change it for the game. So there's certain dip switches that you do for Flash, there's certain dip switches you do for Centaur, there's certain dip switches you do for Stars, and you can set them up and do. And so once we get to this point and we look at it and go, hey, We're getting all the voltages to the MPU. We're getting it everywhere else. At this point, we have to make an assessment. Is it worth our time to keep digging into this board, or is it worth our time to just get a new one? And
So,
if you're not, go ahead.
If you actually like come up and look at this board, you can see all this acid damage that has gone through and kind of caused mayhem on it. If you look down here, this battery is, we call it acid, but it's alkaline, whatever, has leaked out and has just followed all this ground up into, and you can see it corroding all of these components, and then getting over here and getting up into these components, and all the way around, all the way up the side, all the way up this side, eating out these traces. So it's like, it was a miracle it actually booted that one time.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can really get in and see all this damage that's happened. So at this point, it's like, do you pull the board out? Do you try to wash it off with like vinegar and sand it and do a bunch of traces and do the time on it? Or do you want to just go with an Alltech,
And it really depends on, are you tinkering with this? Are you wanting to learn, or how you're wanting to do it? And so with this, there are a few things that you would do, but you can go and read online. There's step-by-step guides of how to do it. It'll tell you exactly what each flash is. And so you can kind of go through and say, okay, the first flash, it deals with this processor up here. So I need to make sure that processor is good, and you check that processor. And then it says the next one, it checks the next processor. So, hey, and you can do stuff where you flip-flop them. I know the first one's good now, and so I'll flop it to the second position, and does that change? It goes back to one flash instead of two flashes. And you kind of just sit there and start trying to eliminate, what can I eliminate here? What can I say, hey, this is wrong, this isn't working right, and you start going through it, and you try to get those flashes back. With the battery damage that those have, and you're having to get in those connectors, even putting in a brand new board may not get you there, because those connectors have been hit with that alkaline damage too. And so you're gonna have to repin those and put new crimps on them to even get it there. Now, a lot of times you'll see where with the brand new male pins that are on these boards, it'll get you by, but it'll only get you by for so long, and that battery damage can actually transfer to your new board from those old pins, those old female pins that are in there. And so when they do that, you want to try to eliminate everything that has been hit with that alkaline damage, because it is a cancer. It'll continue to spread. As the voltage goes through it, it spreads to different parts of your board. And so you'll end up, if you were fixing this board, you would actually have to take every component in a damaged area out, sand it all the way down, fix any traces that have been broken and eaten away from that damage, then repopulate it, seal it at the same time, seal it so it doesn't take more oxidation damage, and then repin your stuff. And so when we look at it, we're going, I'm just going to get a new board.
Right. Yeah. Especially if we're out on a service call or something like that, and you look at this board, it's like the time and effort it's going to take for me to fix it is going to be worth more. Like, it's going to be way more than it is just to get a new board and have me repin those connectors. Like, you can repin connectors fairly quickly. Once you get proficient with the crimper, like the hand crimper, like, you can get real quick at it. But redoing a board like that, it's just not time efficient, right, which then becomes not cost efficient. Correct. And so there's always this happy medium of how far do I want to learn, how far do I want to take this, I save money, but then also, if I spend 10 hours working on that board, I could have already been up and going with an Alltech. Yes, sir. They have replacement boards, and they do have some combo boards out there and stuff, but I know that Marco Specialties was carrying some of those for the Williams 3 through 6. Yep. And I found swimmer boards out there that had the 40 pin, and it was a dual board, so I put it in my Barracora, and it worked great. All that fresh new 40 pin that's just like super flush and nice, like it was just very, very big. You get good contact. So yeah, so they do have remake boards, and just like that one that I was showing for the WPC,
this Pentec line that Marcos is now doing, they're doing a lot of these reproduction boards, and so this is actually a reproduction of the WPC games. So when you run into issues where you have battery damage on any of your games, sometimes it's the most cost efficient just to replace them. And this one has some very expensive chips that you have to transfer over. This chip right here is about $100, this 40 pin square chip. And so you're going to want to transfer some of those over to your new boards to get it up and going. But yes, for a lot of the games out there, they do have some sort of reproduction board that you can go out there and save your game with.
And then Marco is coming out with more of the Pentec stuff.
I'm so excited.
I believe
so excited.
They will end up with that era of
Yes,
with
sir.
that big giant 40 pin board coming too.
Yes, the main two are the two bottom, left and right. Those are almost always going to get hit in a Bally Stern game of this era. And so you do definitely want to do those too. But if you're having funky things go on, then yes, we go around. What we run into a lot on these games is, like this one has been sitting in some way, shape, or form, and all of those pins in that game are really oxidized at this point and have some sort of form of resistance on them. And so there are certain connectors in here that we've got to make sure that we do. We're going to do the bottom two here. We're always going to do this top one where all the voltages come in because they're going to burn up over time with all those voltages and the amperage coming through them. So we're always going to do those. And then you start getting into, so hey, am I having issues? How far up did the damage go? And on this one, it went all the way up. You can see it all the way up in the corner on both sides. So we would almost repin all of these .100 pins. And I'll give you a little crash course on pins. We have newbies all the time. They go, hey, I got these pins, and it's the wrong pins. In these ones, the smaller ones are called .100s, and it's a smaller pin. They're pretty much one size fits all, okay? Because you're going to have mainly a 22 gauge wire going into them, and it's one size fits all. But when you step up to the next size up, they have actually two different collars on them. I call them the collars. It's the part that crimps on to them. One will be for a smaller gauge wire, and one will be a little larger for a larger gauge wire. And you kind of want to have both because these games have both. And then there'll be situations too where in these IDC connectors, instead of putting two into one, they looped it through because they can just displace it. And so they actually looped the wire right through. So all they did was press in this very center of the wire to get it. And you have to now cut that, separate it into two wires, put it into the same housing, and crimp it back into it. And so there are different sizes of those. Then they actually have these for the, I forget, I call them like junior fit, but on the bottom of this, down in this board down here, they actually have these square connectors, and I call them junior fit, but that's not the correct name. I just associate all the square ones with the junior fit. But they have square connectors, and they have these pins, and it's the same thing. You crimp them on in the same way, but then you just slide them into the thing. It has flares on the side that keep them in, keep it where it can't come back out. And so you have these that you'll redo on the bottom. If you're going to save that board down there, there's a lot of those that you have to redo because they will burn up over time with that amperage and that voltage going through them. And you'll see sometimes on the connectors a burn mark where it's just heated up. Anywhere you have resistance, you have heat. And so if you have a lot of resistance, it's going to create more and more heat. And you'll see sometimes where a connector is melted, or you'll see something where the connectors are burned. And if you only change one side, you have the same thing you have with the battery damage, where now that you've married this new piece with this old piece, anything that's wrong with the old piece is going to start transferring its way over to the new piece. So you really want to have new pieces on both sides to eliminate and for longevity. Yes, sir.
Where you guys see where it's white there, it was running 100 degrees on the IDC.
Yeah.
And thermal cameras like $200 on Amazon really help us track this. Now this is the next generation of the free release.
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, so what he's saying in there to help diagnose a little bit, they have gotten a thermal camera off of Amazon to do, and you can put the thermal camera up and you can really see where things are heating up. I've heard of people doing that before with their boards, where if one of these is going bad, they'll put a thermal camera on it and look for it and see, is that getting hot? Because none of those chips should run, that hot. And so if you see that, you're normally seeing a short or a capacitor that's shorted and is frying that thing.
Yeah, you got some issues. Wanted to mention that Marco does sell the kits for the Bally Stern connector kit. So for the MPU and for the driver board as well. That gives you all the pins, all the male and female sides of the boards, the headers and the connectors. I was thinking about just showing you guys real quick how to use this crimping tool, just to kind of show you what we're into. So I would like to strip the wire a good amount to give me, so I'm not sure exactly, that's probably about 1/2 inch. Give me a lot of lead on it. Then I take my connector and I get this top crimp kind of like to be able to grab the wire. It's like or the sheathing on the wire, and then the bottom crimp is going to end up grabbing the actual raw wire. Then I take some needle nose pliers and I kind of give it a little pinch to make it so it doesn't go anywhere. A little bit more of a pinch. And then now it's kind of on there, it won't go anywhere. So now when it's in the game, it's like you're not dropping things and stuff like that. And you grab your crimping tool, put it in the appropriate size, and give it a nice little pinch. It'll pinch it down, and you end up with a nice pinch on the sheathing, and it grabs the wire right there. So as opposed to the IDC, where the wire kind of like slides in and it like bites around it, this is now like a nice solid connection. And then this would slide into the connector housing basically, and it just kind of snaps in just like that. Then you do the female side, same thing. It's a nice little bit to play with. Again, little sheathing like that. Give it a pinch with your needle nose pliers to make it so it doesn't go anywhere. Try to make sure that you don't end up smashing the actual connector side. You're just trying to get the crimp on these two. Then this would go into the female side like so. And now we have our connector. I put it in the wrong hole. But now we stick together, and then these two are now going to be like nice and solid connection. We definitely like to change out these other IDC's style to this Molex style, so it's a much better connection. And then they have what do they call it, the Trifericon component down here. No, these aren't Trifericon. These are just flat. But the Trifericon ones I really like are these guys, because they have, if you see the difference, this has one side that it's going to end up getting connection on, where these guys have these wings. So you end up getting 3 connections as opposed to 1 with these little guys. Getting you just better power and better connection. Everything in pinball is all about getting good, clean power to everything, so everything has good voltage.
Yeah, so I'm on now? Yeah. So one of the other tools I wanted to show you is this board remover tool. These are great to have in your toolkit. It's basically kind of looks like a straw. It's got holes on either side. But these connectors in here where they snap the boards in, usually they'll have screws in for the ground plane as well, but this one doesn't. You can actually take this and put it right over there, and then it releases those flares on both sides, and it makes it pulling out these boards super easy. And so, again, this is one of those things that I buy like 10 of them at a time because I'm going to leave them somewhere, or I'm going to set it down, or whatever else, or I'm going to give it away. And so I buy a bunch of these and have them on me. But this is a great tool. It's universal for a lot of games, and you're going to use it in a lot of games. So if you're taking a board out, this makes your life a whole lot easier than trying to pinch it with your fingers or get pliers in there and do it.
Yeah,
and
I don't
breaking
have
them
one
off.
of those, so I'm a pliers, like getting in there, needle nose pliers, trying to do it is a pain. I definitely need one of those. And where do you find them? What's the tool called?
It's a board remover tool.
Marco sells them. It's called a board remover tool.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we pull this board out. Let me get the mic.
Yeah, I'll hold it.
I don't have a thing. But you can see over here that damage has already come onto these pins. And so when and it's flaking off all on him. And so when we pulled that connector off, all of those pins up there actually are a different color and have all that greenish color nasty on them. These boards from Alltech fit right into those existing, oh man, look at that back. That's a fun one. And when it goes all the way through the board like that, that's when we really say, hey, this board is not worth it anymore. Because now you're going through the through holes, and it's on the back side and the front side, and that's where you're going to go, hey, my time and energy is going to be way past what it's worth on this game. And then these boards snap right into the existing pieces. These board holder little plastic pins and stuff, it snaps right in, and these connectors can go on. Now, we would repin these. We're not probably going to have time to do it, but let's just see what we get. Down here on these is the dip switches. It has 8 dip switches here. And so I went ahead and did it. I looked with the manual. It comes and has a little sheet on the back, and you find your game, and it tells you which ones to turn on or off. And so in this game, it told us that it needed 8 on, and then you skip 1 on 7, and then 6, 5, and 4 are all on. And so we've followed that, and we've turned it on. And so now we're going to plug this in and just see if we get anything. Now, we may have some issues still in this connector where this game is not going to boot correctly because of that, but we're going to give it a shot and just see what we get out of it.
At the booth, actually, at like 4 o'clock, we will be going through and repinning all of this stuff. So we're going to be doing kind of live demo-y stuff. I have a photo of our schedule. From like 2 o'clock, we're going to actually put like yopsicles and comet lights into this guy. So if you want to come by at the booth and learn how to put in yopsicles, which are a really cool thing for your inserts. They come in this little sheet, and you end up like popping them out and removing the sockets and putting these guys in, and it makes nice clean light coming up through your inserts. And then you don't have the old rotten, what's that? Lamp sockets, yeah, that are all burnt up or corroded or whatever. This cleans it up a lot, so we'll be doing that. And then at 4 o'clock, we're going to continue going through this game. We'll be repinning everything and trying to see if we can get it fully working, but we got the board actually.
Yeah, we got it in. So on these, they have the same light system. You're going to look for 7 flashes over here. So we're going to turn it on, see if we get the LEDs to light up, see what happens on it. Since we know that the voltage coming through here is good, we feel confident at this point that we can plug in the board and we're not going to damage anything because we checked the 5 volts up to that point.
Yep.
There's 1 flash, here it comes. And it booted up. So now it's booted. We got displays, we got some attract lights, and now we can kind of start moving forward on this. But it's just following that flow of the electricity. Do we have a clean here? Do we have it clean here? Do we have it clean here? And if whatever component that stops at, of, hey, we know we got voltage all the way up there, so that board should be doing what it should be.
Right.
Now we knew, hey, and with the diagnostics that they built in, we knew that was the issue. Right away. And so we got to eliminate the board down here, we got to eliminate the board up here, and every step you're trying to eliminate a variable at what could be wrong. And once you eliminate that whole variable, now you're taking chunks away where everybody looks at it as a whole picture. We're just looking at it one step at a time.
Yeah, so now we get to the point where, you know, it boots up at least. The lights all seem to be working except for the ones that seem to be burnt out. You can kind of see the blackness on here. And then if you look at the play field, you can see some of the insert lighting isn't lighting up in this attract mode. So we would continue to kind of diagnose whether these are just sockets being burnt out, whether it's just light bulbs being burnt out, or if it's actually the light board itself not communicating down to these lights. So Phil has a really fun...
So I did this with a Yopsicle today, but you can do it with just a regular LED bulb or an incandescent bulb and stuff. So I just make this a little external little, it's not a lamp socket, but it's an external circuit, so I can test these lamp sockets and see, hey, is it that the fiber in those lamp sockets is separated and it's not making good connection and we're not getting it there? Or are we not getting a signal from the board? We're not getting power, we're not getting the path to ground. And so all I've done is you get one side here that you clip into. It says it on the back, this is positive, this is negative. And so the positive side, we want to clip in to the ground, or not the ground, excuse me, to the braid that goes through that's supplying power to all of these lamp sockets here. So as you're going through, you can see there's this common braid that goes through most of all the game, and that is what's supplying power to all of these. Then the wire that comes off this other side is actually its path to ground and where it gets the signal to be turned on or off from the board. It completes that path to ground and turns that light on. So on these ones that aren't working correctly, we need to figure out, hey, is it just a bulb? Is it a socket? Is it something that we can eliminate right away? So some of these are already pulled down. They kind of look burnt out. But what I'll do is I'll take this white one that's connected to the positive, and I'm going to just find the ground braid wherever I can and clip it on. And then I can come up with the other end on the negative side, and I can tap it on here. And we can see that as I do that, it will flash at certain times. So let's make sure. Okay, hold on. Hold that side for me, Matthew. So we can come in here and we can start tapping these different ones and see if they come on. The other thing is it does have a lamp test, so let's put it in lamp test so we know it's flashing. And see, there it goes, it starts flashing. So we know it's getting signal to that point, so we either have a bad bulb or we have a bad socket. Same thing all the way through, you can do that and start clipping it on, and you see that it's blinking, so we know either a bad bulb or a bad socket. It's not the actual signal coming from the board. If you run into one where it is the signal coming from the board, then you go back to that board and investigate. You can look for voltage there and stuff, but it's bouncing so much with the on and off and how it flows that it kind of confuses people a lot of times. So this is a way that you kind of take all that confusion out of it. So sometimes when it's bouncing like that, you'll see 2 volts because it's going up, and the multimeter is actually, these days, are giving you an average of what it sees at that moment. So if it's averaging it out and it never averages at the peak, then you're only seeing the average at the incline or the decline of that voltage. And so all of these we can just kind of go through and we can start testing them. And hey, it's blinking. We know, hey, we're going to replace the socket or we're going to place the bulb on that, and it's going to be good.
Up top.
These Yopsicles are real cool on these games because you actually eliminate all these older sockets in here. I mean, the lamp sockets. And so you would actually take and unscrew this, desolder these lamp sockets out, and then you can take this Yopsicle, put the screw through it, solder back onto the top of it, solder this one wire onto it, and then you don't have to really worry about that lamp again. And you don't have to put a new socket, you don't have to do anything. And some people like that. It does take a little bit of time to go through your whole game and do it, but it is a good option. The obstacles actually have the extra resistance built into them so they don't flicker. In these Bally games and Stern games, on anything that's a controlled lamp. So we'll go through lamps real quick. General illumination, or GI, is anything that's on during the game so you can see what you're doing. So anytime you have a game that stays on through the whole entire game so you can see what you're doing is called a GI, and it's a separate circuit. Then we have what's called controlled lamps, and those are all the lamps that get controlled by the computer and need some sort of signal to tell it to turn on and off. And so those are controlled lamps, like which player's up, if it's player 1, 2, or 3, game over, tilt. All of those are controlled lamps in this scenario. Most everything under the playfield and under the inserts are a controlled lamp as well. And so in that, the controlled lamps, the circuits that they used, an LED new technology doesn't latch on and stay on. It actually flickers, and it keeps going on and off, on and off, on and off, on and off, because they didn't use a true transistor in that. They used what's called an SCR. It gets a little bit more advanced, but basically they didn't use the right components for LEDs. So the solution is you either have to add resistance to each and every socket. You go get a little resistor and you add it in there, or you get one of the Alltech boards, or you put in the obstacles. So you have options of what you want to do in getting your game up to an LED so you don't have to replace the bulbs all the time. Especially in these games when it's incandescents and they're blinking on and off all the time, you will find where you're going to have to replace them more often because they're going to blink on and off, on and off, on and off, and that's getting hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold. So when it does that, those bulbs don't have the life. And so that's when we come in with Comet LEDs from Marco's, and he's here at the show, so you can go and grab some from him. And they have all sorts of different colors and variations and stuff to get your game up and going. But if you're going to just put a bulb into these sockets, no, you're gonna have to solve the issue of it flickering in the controlled lamp. The GI, you're fine, because it's getting a constant voltage all the time. It's on all the time, but anything that is turning off, it has to have a certain amount of resistance in this system to actually latch it and keep it on.
Nice. So it turns out all the sockets or all the lights are just burnt out. So
Yeah.
like now we can just go with either putting in comets, or we're going to do the obstacles for sure. They just are a better move.
So take them real quick. Let's do some more if we've got a little bit more time, of taking it through the diagnostic test with the solenoids and things like that. What we would do at this point, before we do anything else, is we're going to get what is the state of the game? What's working, what's not working? We want to find out on the playfield anything that's an issue, because before we start tearing it down, we want to know if we caused the issue or if the issue was already in existence before then, because then that points us in the right direction. If I'm cleaning a game and all of a sudden I have a new issue, then I know it's something I touched. I either closed the switch where I shouldn't have closed it, I've been a lamp socket to where I shouldn't have been it, and so you have that. You want to kind of get you a state of the game. So that's what he's doing right now. Hey, we know where the lamps are. Now let's figure out where the solenoids are. Is everything firing like it should? Is anything locking on? And so it has some built-in test in this game. There is a service button right inside the corn door.
You got the nice little red button here. Hit it once. That's going to be your light test. So you can see all the lights are flashing in the same pattern. Next one is your display test. So you see all the displays. Yeah, so this one's looks a little funky.
So this one's a little funky, and commonly on these games, what you'll end up having is the connector on the back will have cold solders, and you'll get this kind of wavy look. Now, a lot of people, if you want to save these displays, you can go and heat up that solder, take the old solder off, put new solder on, and it may fix this issue. But, you know, then if you don't want to do that, then we have these guys.
Yeah, super pretty.
Yeah, and these pin scores, we put these in a lot of our machines, especially on location, because when they're on all the time and this high voltage, it just gets annoying, and it tends to go out and burn up from the game being on. But these pin scores, they are one-to-one replacement. You don't have to do anything else to your game. You don't have to mod it. You don't have to modify anything. You just put this in. We recommend getting a whole set because they do look a little bit different from the old, but you can dial these in to the dimness that you want. They have a actually dimmer potentiometer on them where you can dim them down, make them look as close as you can to the originals, and they actually are going to last you a lot longer. And when we put a whole set of these in, we go ahead and pull out the high voltage fuse because we don't need that section of that board anymore, and it just eliminates one more issue that we may have down the road. So we pull the high voltage, these runs off of 5 volts, and we're good to go for a long time.
So then if you hit the self-test button one more time.
Oh, there you go. So what's happening here is he started going through that. When it gave actual power to the coils, we have a jackhammering effect that's happening on this the slingshot on the right side. And that jackhammering effect is because of what, Matthew?
I'm going to say, no, that works.
You moved the...
I moved so I moved the rubber. So the rubber on this thing, the switch in here was just a little too close. And so when the kicker came back, it would bounce, and then the switches would bounce together and then give you that like kind of shotgun effect.
So it has this play in it that goes back and forth, and when that rubber is too tight, it's holding those switches closed. So it's going out, opening it up, coming back, it's closed again, opening it up, closing, and you're seeing that jackhammer effect going back and forth. And so that's the stuff you see. Once you give power and energize these coils, you're going to start seeing issues that you're going to have to diagnose.
So I'm just kind of watching all the coils popping right now.
And it's telling you which coil it is from the manual up here. So when you're looking at this, it's telling you it's coil 15, it's coil 16. And so you can actually open up the manual and follow along and say, that's the out hole, that's this, and make sure it's firing in the right order too. So it looks like everything's firing from what I can see.
I'm just trying to see these guys
aren't
pop
resetting.
up. This tries to pop up. I know those drop targets are broken underneath. I know that for sure. So the coils work.
Yeah, so what we're seeing here is the coils work, but we had some mechanical issues going on. The drop targets up here, they're broken, so it can't reset this properly. We saw that we had this switch touching too close, and so we made some notes of that so we can say, hey, you know, we're going to have to address these drop targets for sure. We've already kind of diagnosed what that issue is, and so then we can kind of start moving on with what we're going to do, and then come up with our game plan of how much are we going to put into this. You know, are we going to change it out to the obstacles? Are we going to do the LED board? What all we're going to do to it?
Right. And so like at the moment, I look at this and say it's prime for just a tear down, like from the top down. I would like take all the stuff off the top, clean it, put new rings on it, probably definitely yopsicle it, and then get to the underside. Do the yopsicles down there, probably a flipper rebuild because we'll check that out. We got to rebuild some drop targets because we see in here that they're all different. So it's definitely not all the ones that are original to Flash Gordon. So I want to kind of get that back to more original status, and then fix the drop targets up top, and then this game's going to be playing good. Like it's surprisingly not that bad. Yeah, for it being dead when we got it, like just finding out it's one board, we'll repin all these connectors, get that nice and clean, probably repin the other ones on the other side as well, just because. And then, by the end of the show, hopefully we'll have a fully flipping Flash Gordon. So.
always wait on this thing. So if there are any more questions and stuff, we're welcome to have some more questions. Anybody want to ask some things? If we can you come up to the mic and ask them just so we get them on the stream and everything for everybody who's watching? So if you have a question, will you just come to the mic and ask and stuff so that we can just hear everything?
Questions I got, what about known issues? Do you have any resources on that? Because I know like on the older Gottliebs had grounding problems and they had some factories. And I had a balling machine too that had a reset board in it, and I found that the factory recommended just taking that thing out. Of course, I stuck it back in. And,
Right.
and is there a good place to find out what those mods would be recommended to do?
Yes. So I'll start and you can add
totally.
what you think on it. One of the best places and the best resources out there is the Internet Pinball Database, so ipdb.org. They're going to have most of the manuals there, but then they also list the service bulletins, what you're talking about, where they send out a service bulletin saying, hey, we upgraded this, we changed this, and you can check your game out. Also, some of the manuals nowadays, when they sell them, they'll sell it with the service bulletins in there as well. Then there's also pinwiki.com.
Pinwiki.
That has all your different systems, and you can go look, and it'll have a section in that says common issues. And it'll tell you, hey, these are the 10 things that we always see in this system that you need to address.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm new to the hobby. What's a solenoid? What does it do?
So a solenoid is like any of your coils is going to be a solenoid. Should lift this up and show you guys.
Yep.
So there's your, this is your drop target reset solenoid. You got your pop bumper solenoid. So these are all coils essentially that are magnetizing and pulling a plunger through it.
Yeah, so you have the coil, and then once you have an action happen there, it's called a solenoid. And so it is actually pulling those plungers in with the electromagnet. When you apply electricity to it, magnetizes it, it pulls it in. And that whole mechanism together, when it's pulling it in, is called a solenoid. But one of the main components in that is the coil.
Is the coil, yeah.
That is the electromagnet.
So that driver board up top that we were talking about, the solenoid driver board is what tells those to fire.
Yep.
And like to pull in and function essentially. Like once the switch gets hit, that sends it up to the MPU over to the driver board to say, hey, kick it. And that's when you get like your kicker's kicking and your pop bumper's kicking and all that.
So it's like a railroad track switching tracks.
In a way, yes, and the same thing, but it's just basically an electromagnet that is pulling a piece of metal in to causing an action to happen.
Cool.
I had a question about if you're repinning that MPU board or that power supply, how long does that take for, say, you guys, and could you have an estimate for
I repinned like an NFL football in an hour and a half, 2 hours. It was just like the one MPU, but I think it was like 6 connectors or something like that, about an hour and a half, 2 hours. It's tedious, but it's like you just take your time and you just kind of get into a rhythm. And I usually put some music on. I'm just like, we're pinning today.
It varies per game, and the other thing that the variable that's in there is how you have to get to the connectors, and this will undo a lot of the screws and the actual clips that hold it into the back box so that we can pull it out of the game and be in a more comfortable position to do it. And so that will add some. If you're having to reach over, you're having to stand on something to get in there and really do it, then it's going to take you a little bit longer and stuff and do, yeah.
So you take those plastic things
Yeah.
that hold that
Yes.
thing together?
The harness holders that are in there, we take those out, as many as we can, to get as much length on that cable to get it in a comfortable position.
Okay.
When we're doing a big game like that, yeah.
Is there a lot of detail with the tolerances of those wires if you're just taking a half an inch or an inch off of them?
You're going to be fine and stuff on all of that. There is extra length in there. Now, you run into situations
Right.
where somebody did it and you have to add a jumper back on. But yeah,
Happens.
but it's not very often, I don't think.
No, not really.
Yeah,
Thank you, guys.
yeah, absolutely.
Is there ever a scenario where there's a chip or a ROM issue? Somewhat selfishly, I have a high speed that just plays the jackpot music at all times, but otherwise plays perfectly fine. So,
Wow.
could that be a high speed or a hardware issue, or more of a software ROM type of a thing?
That's a tough one. Like it could be, it could be a ROM issue. It could be a short on a chip like that.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably running into you can run into a couple different issues on that. Yes, a hardware issue where a ROM is messed up. You can buy new ROMs for all of those and stuff, and they're fairly cheap. They're usually between $10 and $13 per chip. And so you figure out with how many yours needs, whether it needs 3 sound ROMs or 1 or whatever, and you buy those new ones and you put it in. That's a cheap, easy way to say, hey, is it the ROM or is it something further down? But then you can run into where those sounds are getting triggered from on there. And if you have one that's locking on and it's doing that sound the whole entire time, then you may have a signal issue where it's staying high or staying low somewhere on that and keeping that sound locked on the whole entire time.
Could also be the socket itself.
Yeah.
Like could be
The physical hardware
physical
issue.
hardware like on the socket itself. So if you take that chip out, you might replace the chip socket as well,
Yeah.
and clean up the solder and stuff in the back, and then put the new chip in, and then see if
Yeah,
that,
you'll see sometimes where there's corrosion or one of those legs breaks or things at times too. So it can be a little bit of both.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, I have a silly problem that I created on my own. So I was hooking up a mod, or just like this little thing on my Indiana Jones WPC, and unfortunately connected it to the wrong like alligator clip areas, and so now I found on the back on the driver board that it's burned out, the connector's burnt out, and so any advice on like how to get that all fixed up? And I can't really see where the wires were that went into that connector, so.
So you're gonna have to look at the schematic on that point and like see what color wires go into what pin to repin that whole thing.
Yeah.
And then unfortunately the male side coming into the board as well, like desoldering that and seeing what the damage is on that. You might have to run some new traces depending on how much damage it did.
And you can go through your test again and just see if anything's locking on, whether that be lights or whether that be solenoids. If you turn something on and you see it lock on and stay on, then that's probably the section that got hit, and you can go to the pin wiki or you can go to the manual and say, hey, this section runs those lights that are locking on, this section runs those solenoids that are locking on, and eliminate other things and just focus in on that one section.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, pinball repair is a lot of process of elimination, just like let's whittle this down from this big picture down to where the issue is.
Yep, absolutely.
I'm trying to resurrect an old Trident game.
Nice.
And I was cleaning everything up, and I found something that's kind of strange, and we think it might actually be part of the circuit board that's liquefied and kind of wicked up onto the pins. I have a picture of it here.
Oh, is it the like green?
Yeah, green goop.
Yeah, what is that? I can't remember what that is.
That's the degrading of the insulation that's around those wires. Over time, some of them, when they take heat for constant periods of time, that insulation, that plastic that they use, degrades and turns into that liquid mush. What you'll end up wanting to do on that is actually, if the male pins are okay, if they don't look like they're corroded or anything, you would actually take that connector off, cut it back to where it's not mush anymore, and then repin that whole connector and put a fresh connector housing in there with new pins, and you should be good to go.
With new pins?
Yeah, with new pins.
Okay, even though you said they look okay.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know where all that leaked, and you're not going to see it with your eye, and you're not going to see if it leaked over to the next one or whatever. So usually, if I see that, I just go ahead and repin that whole entire connector and just make sure that I eliminate all that goo and don't have any issues with it later.
It's at those 5 displays in the backboard.
Yeah.
Every one of them had that green.
And unfortunately, it does. It comes down to sometimes where you have to repin all the display connectors and stuff like that. And it sounds like a daunting task, and you're like, oh man, but once you get into it and get going, it'll go faster than you think.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, so on those, what he's saying, and it is correct, is what we'll do a lot of times when on a game like this or an older game, is we'll dial back the voltage on the displays a little bit. They ran these at 190. And so sometimes we'll go in there where the potentiometer is for that, and we'll dial it back down to 170, somewhere in there. And basically what that does, it makes them a little dimmer, but at the same time, it's not creating the same amount of heat, and you're not going to get that degrade quite as quick or as often when you dial that back down. Because again, the resistance causes heat, the heat causes other issues.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Cool. All right, cool. Well, thank y'all for coming. We're going to take just like a 10-minute break to refresh real quick, and then we're going to do flipper rebuilds. So if y'all want to stick around and stuff, go get you some water, go take a bathroom break and everything. But we'll be back in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, totally. Thank you.